and get started. Welcome, everybody, and thank you very much for taking the time out of what I'm sure is a busy Tuesday to be here with us live. My name is Connor. I'm the marketing manager here at ARInsights, and I'm delighted to be joined today by two subject matter experts who will be doing the vast majority of the talking today. They are, of course, Patty and Greg Wind, who co-lead the agency at ARInsights, our in-house full-service AR agency. Patty and Greg and their team of senior practitioners, they're helping clients every day with everything from AR program strategy to hands-on support with the execution of things like major evaluations, of course, as well as analyst events, peer reviews, the whole gamut, whatever you can think of. So needless to say, Patty and Greg are quite busy. So I'm very appreciative of the two of them taking the time to partner with me on this webinar and to be here live. So Patty, Greg, thank you. And also, hello, how's it going?
It's going
Oh,
great.
wow.
Thanks, Connor.
Glad to hear
It's
it.
bugging me a little bit that I can't see the chat because I'm presenting the slides.
It's a
So
fun one
I'm
too. It's a
a
fun one.
blanket hello to everyone, and I'm sorry I can't comment.
Greg's in the chat in spirit. Um, I should also say thank you to everyone for folks who registered early. And you know that we had to postpone this webinar by a week due to quite a lot of snow. We appreciate it. So thank you for hanging in with us. I am going to hand the mic to Patty and Greg in just a minute, but we do have some housekeeping, and I promise this is fun housekeeping. This is a lot more fun than your typical webinar housekeeping. Our first item is breaking news. So congratulations if you're here live. You're getting the breaking news in real time. Save the dates, mark your calendars. AR Engage Live 2026 will take place at the Charles Hotel in Cambridge, Massachusetts, Wednesday, November 11th through Thursday, November 12th. For anyone who may not know, AR Engage Live is a free, exclusively in-person conference for AR practitioners. So as an attendee, first and foremost, it's an opportunity to be in the same room, face-to-face with your fellow practitioners, meeting, catching up, exchanging ideas, sharing what's working, what's not, having some fun. But in addition to that, of course, we also have programming. So keynote presentations, breakout sessions, fireside chats, all featuring your fellow practitioners, again, sharing what's working and what's not. So registration is not open yet, but it will be soon. I mostly just wanted you all to have the dates and the venue so you can mark your calendars. But please keep an eye out because I will make sure you all know when registration opens for AR Engage Live. Now, this is still 9 months away, and of course, we don't wait that long to see all of you in person. Thank you, Greg, for the flip. So I wanted to let you all know also where the ARInsights team will be in terms of events that are happening this month and in April. So what you all see here, these are the 6 events over the next 2 months where we'll have team members present. And I share this because, as many of you know, whenever possible, we love to organize get-togethers for the AR community because, again, we know how valuable that face-to-face time is with your fellow practitioners. So we want to make sure that you all know where we will be, and we'd love to know where you will be. So sound off in the chat if you are attending any of these events. Please let us know. I will also include in the follow-up email that you all will get, hopefully this evening with the recording and the slide deck, I'll also include a link to a web page that lists all the events we are planning to attend so far in 2026. And there's also a form on that page that you can submit super quick, takes a few seconds. You can let us know where you'll be. And again, the reason that's worth the 10 seconds or whatever to do is because it helps us organize those get-togethers, which, as I said, I think you all enjoy. So please let us know. And that's it for housekeeping. Great. If you give me one more flip.
Hmm?
Connor's still talking. Oh my God, I'm almost done. I just want to tee up Patty and Greg. So for today's webinar, first, Patty and Greg will give us all a bird's eye view of something that you all are very familiar with, the major evaluation cycle or process. And from that bird's eye view, they will call out all the different opportunities that you all have to apply automation to improve the quality of the work you're doing, as well as be more efficient and save some time for you and your SMEs. After that, Patty and Greg will then go deep on one of those opportunities. We only have an hour, so they're going to go deep on just one of those opportunities, which is the point in the process where you have draft responses to the RFI and you are refining those responses with the help of AI. After that, Patty and Greg will wrap up with some overarching AI do's and don'ts for AR leaders. And with any time remaining, they will answer your question. So if you want Patty and Greg to answer a question, please submit it through the Q&A function. As we've seen, the chats for fun, the chats for all kinds of stuff. So if you want to make sure we see your question and we don't miss it, please submit it through the Q&A and save the chat for all the other fun stuff. And speaking of questions, Greg, if you could flip to our first real slide. So this is that bird's eye view that I was talking about. Before Patty and Greg do their thing, we'd love to sort of level set with all of you. There's over 100 of you here, so we want to make sure we have a good sense of where you all are at. So we're going to do a couple of quick poll questions, if that's okay. And I'm going to set those live, the first one live now. Okay. You all should now see our first poll question. So we'd love to know. You all can read it. You're already answering. We'll give folks, I don't know, 20 more seconds to answer our first poll question. Thank you to all of you who are chiming in. This is super helpful for us to see. We'll give it 10 more seconds. Okay, looks like the response have slowed down, so I'm going to end the poll now. I'm going to share the results. Patty and Greg, can you see the results of the poll?
Yes, and roughly what I would have expected. So that's great.
Great. Thank you all for participating. We have one more question that's sort of a follow-up. So for those of you, stop sharing. For those of you who said, yes, you use AI often, or yes, you've experimented, we have a follow-up question. So we'd love to know, what I have listed here are the 7 or 8 points in the process that we have on the slide. So if you could just select all the apply and let us know, at which of these points in the process have you tried applying AI? We'd love to see that. Okay, we have it 10 more seconds or so. Thank you to all of you. This is great. Okay, I'm going to end the poll so we can keep things moving.
Okay.
What do you think, Patty and Greg? Does this roughly align with what you were expecting to see?
Yes. Although I love seeing the spike at fact check response.
I was going to say Greg's going to be happy to see that.
Yeah, I am. I am. That's great.
Okay, so that's it from me until the end. So Patty and Greg, take it away.
All right. So you can see these lines. I've presented this before, and the idea here is to convey there are tools out there for different purposes, and they have varying levels of success when it comes to the various stages of the evaluation process. And if you look at it holistically from before the report kicks off until after it's published, there are several opportunities for applying AI and automation. So I'll just start left to right. The work back plan and criteria analysis, even before you get the welcome packet or premise document, whatever the firm's calling the introductory document, you can start working with AI to make sure that you've got your plan ready, that you know who's going to be involved, that you have some expectation of how you're going to perform in this report, because I find the expectation setting is very important. We want to know everybody's aligned on where we expect kind of the low end of what might happen and what we can reach for so that we can understand how much are we going to invest in this report and what are the likely outcomes, because the executives are going to come into it with an expectation, and we need to be able to either meet that expectation, exceed it, or reassess, right? When we get to the RFI response, and this is one of the more interesting components, there is a direct correlation between the quality of your sources, the thoroughness of your sources, and what you're going to get out of AI, no matter what you're doing. And this is where the dedicated RFI tools, and you can think of those as like Responsive or Loopio are the most common. Tribble, RFI. There are tons out there. But all of those were designed for a sales process. They're designed for security questionnaires, AI questionnaires, RFP responses. They're very good at that. They come with a lot of supporting technology, workflow tools, so that it's not just saving the answers that you've put in before and reapplying them to the next challenge. It's about making sure that there's some stewarded, I can't think of the word now. Somebody's in charge of maintaining those question and answer pairs. They can be hooked up to data sources so that you're always getting the fresh data. And they've got collaboration tools so that as you go through the process of completing that draft, you can check in with your team. If they forward the question to somebody else, you get to see that. There's a lot built into these tools that go beyond what you're going to get out of an LLM or a notebook LM or any other tool. Uh, that's not to say you can't apply those more general purpose tools. It's just that's where you're going to see more benefit from using RFI software, right? That goes through to about the beginning of the response refinement process. Now, in the response generation, we're looking to compress the window for several reasons. We don't want to take up too much of the SME's time. We want to be able to apply more of the time that you get from the analyst firm into refining the responses and making sure that we've got the most solid reflection of the company that we can, given 3 weeks, 2 weeks, whatever you have. The refinement process is where we find people get really addicted to the process. We go in and we use the criteria, what we've learned from the analysts throughout the year, their hot button issues. If it's a research firm that puts out a trends report looking forward, how well are we aligned to those trends? All of the information we can build into the response to make it perfectly hit the mark for this authorship team. That's a process that we often run before it goes to any executives for review. Often they come back and say, that was really useful and helpful. We've made some changes, run it again. And we see that sometimes, 4 or 5 times before we get to the final submission. It's super useful. You can see if you follow the bluish line, I'm colorblind, so I'm guessing that's blue. That line, you can see that's where it curves up. And height is indicative of how useful the tools are at any particular stage. That's one of the more useful stages where you can apply automation through AI. Once you get through that, if you're handling the RFI response and then the demo and briefing, which is how most companies do it, then you start applying it to your demo script, to your briefing deck. What gaps did we leave in the survey response just because of the way the survey was constructed? And what can we fill in during the demo and briefing to make sure we're talking about all of our differentiation, that we're really addressing what we know are our weaknesses because we did the criteria analysis. Apply all of that learning and make the demo and the briefing not just where you cover everything about the company, but that you're strategically addressing this particular RFI process. Then you
And
can
for the, yeah, for the
sorry, go ahead.
demo and the RFI, I just want to say the whole process also helps to make sure that those two are aligned. So if there are items that you're really trying to call out in the RFI, it's important, it's heavily weighted, you can make sure that that is showing up properly in the demo as well. And, kind of prep the team to know that that's a point they really need to hit when they're doing the demo.
Mhm. Then we go into the lull between everything's been submitted and we're waiting on the draft of the report to come back. The fact check process is the most satisfying to me personally. And for those of you who said that they've tried using AI to help with the fact check response, I'm curious to know if you get that same satisfaction out of it. We have talked to people who spend 3 days on a fact check, use all the time from when you get the draft to the time you have to respond, just combing through materials, talking to your executives, making sure that you have some kind of argument for all the changes people want to see to that draft. I'm a big believer, by the way, in submitting a challenge to scores, regardless of if you're super excited about where you landed. Why pass up that opportunity to educate the analysts? Why let something that's slightly off stand? Go ahead and challenge those things. They're not offended. Let's make sure we're giving them as complete information as we can. Here's an opportunity to present more information. So typically what we're doing is we're loading all of the submission materials, your demo script, your briefing deck, transcripts of those if you're recording them. I know some people are squeamish about recording interactions with analysts, but if you have that transcript, it's another asset you can use. The questionnaire and any demo guidance or the welcome packet, put all of that in, have as one of your source documents the process for fact check review. And if you've got any intelligence, for example, I like to build in a little intelligence for the AI to use that says, this is Gartner. This is our success rate in getting scores changed by Gartner. Uh, Give them something that's a little more than just the documents that are standard, so that it can do a slightly better job of providing your arguments and say, given all this, what are the top 5 things that we can challenge here? That doesn't always align with what executives want to see challenged, and that becomes a little bit of a negotiation. You've got now the argument because it will go in and say, here are 5 bullets on why we feel like this change is justified. If we bring that argument back to the executives, they might say, you're right. Maybe we do need to change that score or fight that one instead of the one that I was saying. Or you can take that and try and find any justification in the submitted materials to try and satisfy what your executives are looking to see change, because maybe they've got a big announcement coming out and what the analyst said about you directly contradicts this very important point, right? So you may want to sacrifice something with a stronger argument to make the case for something that's more strategically important. Either way, you've got access to so much more information, and this literally takes a half hour to do instead of combing through everything and finding the evidence in the submitted materials. Uh, so again, super satisfying, super quick, and in my experience, it does a much better job with this than any other part of the process, because you literally are just looking at the materials you've got and the criteria for how to decide what makes a good fact check review. Once you get through that process, you get the final version of the report. This is where some teams or some companies have full teams dedicated to marketing the results from a research report. You might not have that. That might fall to you, right? So you can create, based on this draft, give me 5 LinkedIn posts. Give me a draft press release based on other press releases that are generated from these reports. Give me 5 blog post topics. Even start building a landing page for that report if you're getting a reprint. And then from there, even after that, you can do a plan following debrief calls with the author team. You can enter all of this in and start building a timeline of engagements that lead up to the next one. Where did we miss? Where did the analyst not understand? What were our weaknesses and how can we show progress? Building out that list of interactions to bridge from one evaluation to the next. So you can see this becomes a whole life cycle of the report. It becomes part of your planning. There's just so much value to all of this, and it really does save time. When we were talking about this, sorry, Patty, I'm rambling, but I know you said you had a little bit of sore throat. When we talked through this and we were talking about the tools we use, and I did discuss RFI tools specifically, there are varying flavors of the AI tools that you can use. The limits of the RFI tools when it comes to the full process make it difficult to just use those. You will probably end up using some other general purpose AI tool if you're going to try and do all of this. But the RFI tools are exceedingly valuable during that part of the process. Which one really depends on your company, but there are a vast sea of offerings to the extent I don't know that there may be 3 or 4 categories of tools that are particularly useful and differentiated, and then it becomes a sea of others, right? But whatever your particular needs are, you can find one, varying by cost, by capability, by style of how you interact with your team. But there's one that's useful and right for you. But if you don't want to have to bring in more software into your organization, if you've got any other restrictions, you can certainly get through this process just using uh, general purpose AI tools that most of us already have access to. I will say that we have found that Notebook LM is better for most of this process. For those who are a little more mature when it comes to AI implementations, uh, Notebook LM is a RAG tool. It's retrieval augmented generation, which means that it is going to adhere more to your source documents. You give it a list of sources, and we can show a little bit more about that when we get past this slide into more of a demo. Uh, it's going to adhere to those sources first and only if you don't tell it to then go search the web for some other information. That is exceedingly valuable when you're talking about this process. You do not want it going off to your website and finding old information or some other document source that that you don't have control over. That is highly dangerous in this kind of environment, and we can get a little bit more into the tips and tricks and why that matters so much. If you're doing a criteria analysis, mock evaluation, performance against competitors, you do want to do some general searching, but it's still, I find, better to go out and find those sources of information yourself and bring those into Notebook LM so that you know where it's getting that information. Notebook LM also does a very good job of documenting where the content comes from. It labels all of its content with the source, so you can go back and check within the environment, which I think is just better than getting something out of Gemini or uh, Claude, where the sources are somewhat hidden. You can always ask, where did you get this information? But with Notebook LM, it's embedded into the response. I think I've covered most of what I wanted to cover on this slide. Patty, did I miss anything that we?
You got it all. I think yeah, when we drill down into the RFI refinement, we've got, yeah, a lot more to add there.
I did.
Yeah.
Sorry, Greg, before you move on, forgive me if I missed this while I was getting caught up on the chat. But on the fact check response, which again I know is a personal passion of yours,
Mhm.
all of this is, but that especially. Did you share the anecdote? You had an anecdote from just a few
I
days ago.
didn't. Yeah, this actually happened last week where in the fact check response phase, uh, there was a client who was a strong contender in a wave, and based on the fact check, we were able to move them into leaders. So it's not something to discount the power of the fact check, especially when you have the capability to make such a strong, directed argument. Uh, you can really make a difference in your performance. I don't want to say it's as much as 20% moving the dot, but it's sometimes enough when you're in those close battles and being able to very quickly, very definitively make your case based on what you've presented, they had access to, and they just didn't add up right. Uh, it's it's almost malpractice to not do it.
If
And
sorry, Patty, go ahead.
I was just going to say, in that instance, there were, I think, 4 scores that changed in
There,
the fact check.
we were allowed to submit 4. That's the current methodology with the wave. We submitted 4. We got 3. I still am a little bothered about that fourth that didn't get changed. But given that we moved into leaders, I don't know if we want to pursue that further. But I do think just having that opportunity to educate the analysts and say you got this wrong is valuable. But to have a very practical result that comes from a well done fact check review. Uh, Again, it's just super satisfying.
if it's okay, Greg, we have a real time question that I think that I don't want to lose this before we move on.
Hmm.
Rachel was asking, thank you for asking this, Rachel. Was asking when this answer took place because she says she's heard Forrester will not make changes on dot placement or scores at fact check.
They made changes to three scores, given that it's a 1-3-5 scale. They moved 2 points up in each case. I have seen companies move from a 1 to a 5. That feels like a huge admission of failure by an analyst. I don't think you're likely to see that often, but because it's a wave, you get that information about what constitutes a 5. I really like the wave methodology because they are explicit with way more things. You have more information to base your argument on than you do with Gartner or others. So being able to point to exactly where in the response, in the questionnaire, in the demo, or in the briefing, we made our case for a 5, it just makes it hard to refute. So yeah, we got three of them changed. One of them was a completeness of vision, or whatever Forrester calls the access. Uh, uh, we got we got more movement out of that score changing than we did out of, a current capabilities score changing. Uh, that's it's a little wonky, but there are fewer categories when it comes to vision. So if you get 2 points higher in one category, that raises your average in that group more than it would in traveling up the y-axis.
Gotcha. And I'm sorry, I actually misunderstood Rachel's question. She was referring to Gartner and their methodology with changing dot placement. So before we move on to the deep dive, I know that this is there's a lot of information that we covered going through this process on the slide. I want to put a fine point on a couple of things. One is just that, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like one of the biggest opportunities here is to use AI to really optimize for how you're using your subject matter experts. Is that fair? Does that feel like one of the places where you can make
Absolutely.
the biggest leap in your current workflow?
Right. And everybody comes to this because they're trying to save everyone time, right? You're dealing with fatigue from your subject matter experts. Now they've got 7 reports they're responding to instead of like the one per year they used to. It takes them away from very important jobs that they have, their day jobs. So you want to make sure you are reducing how much time you're asking them to spend, preparing them better, being very explicit about what their contribution is, and trying to keep it all very contained. Uh, if you can make this take less time, you might also be able to consolidate the number of people who are involved. I always think every time you add another person, you're adding deadline pressure because now if you're working with 5 people, it's a heck of a lot easier to manage than if you're working with 50. More opportunity for somebody to be out or to say, I can't respond to this question and forward to somebody you don't know. Uh, so if we can consolidate the number of people, make it take less time for each of those people, we're going to get more bang for our buck in terms of their time. But we also want to compress our time too, right? I don't want to necessarily engineer all the time out of it. uh, you do see some companies saying, "Hey, finish that RFI with or the survey with an analyst ready response in an hour." I can't believe that's true. You might be able to populate the cells, absolutely, but most of these report submissions you can't read in an hour, right? And you do have to read all of it. So you are not getting something that's submittable in an hour. I think it's much more productive to think about it in terms of how can we reduce the cycle on getting a somewhat final draft and then investing that time in refining the draft, making it more particular to the task at hand, which is performing well in this report. Even if you build in that process, you still end up spending less time on it. Uh, it does mean more time working in AI, so you do have to get used to the tools. But once you feel comfortable with the tools, you'll find that it's not taking over your entire 3 weeks of trying to get the survey done.
Just a quick point on that. Getting the SMEs to provide their feedback earlier in the process, because of all this work that we're doing up front to get strong answers using AI, that allows that much more time for refinement. So instead of, taking 2 weeks to get the feedback from the SMEs, you're able to do it, in half a week, and then you've got all that time for refinement and further input and fine tuning the answers based on the feedback from AI that's saying, this answer could be stronger, this other answer could be stronger, this area is very heavily weighted, and your answer is not, giving it enough importance. So it's just helping to eliminate that scramble at the end of the process as you're getting closer to the deadline.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we're talking about this as if these are one of your priority reports, and there will be other reports where you're invited. Maybe you would have declined, but because you've got recent responses, you're hooked up to all the sources, basically how to get a somewhat reliable draft done. You might be able to address that in a couple hours by yourself without leaning on the SMEs, knowing that you're doing this for a purpose that isn't, this is one of our key analysts and everybody reads this report. There are several reasons to participate in research that are not, we expect this report to move the needle for us. We're going to buy the reprint and use it in sales. You might be doing it just for the purpose of improving your results in LLM search, right? AEO, these reports are the exact kind of structured evaluative content that makes a difference when it comes to AEO, and having multiple research firms validate what the kind of cornerstone reports say is valuable, right? So you might consider that worth a couple hours to fill out a survey and say, we can't provide references. We may not be able to do a briefing, but we can fill out your survey so you have basic information. There isn't a lot of harm in that. The only real risk is maybe they don't get 100% right because you didn't participate fully. That might be okay. That's all to your risk tolerance.
We should probably jump into the drill down for the RFI.
Yes, and I'm excited that we're doing this because I have to figure out how to now get out. There we go. I do spend a lot of time talking about this. You may have been at other webinars that I've done on this topic. And I've always wanted to drill down a little bit more and really get hands-on so that you can see what this looks like in practice, right? I think that's probably why people are joining these. I want to give you something that you would be able to try on your own, right? So this is in Notebook LM. I like to create an individual notebook for each report. You will have the same source documents by and large. It will learn from the reports you're asking for to know what kind of output you like. And it's just a little cleaner when you're searching for. I remember when we were working on that report and there was a draft somewhere where it brought up this issue. This gives you access to all of that pretty much as cleanly as you can. So we populated it with a bunch of sources. I actually use these sources to fill out a survey on the WAN MQ for a fictitious company. So we're not sharing any information on any companies we've worked with. So you will see in the source documents lots of information about the Magic Quadrant process, the authors, the questionnaire, the welcome packet. All of this is designed to build intelligence about the report itself. It doesn't have a ton of information about the company, right? Because it's a fictitious company. It's ARInsights WAN Services. And when you're doing this yourself, you're going to want to feed sources that are about you. So technical white papers, if you've got data from your CRM tool, your financial data, anything like that, you'll want to load it in here so that it can start to understand enough about those numerical responses, about the roadmap, all of that you want built in here, because as much of this as you can do yourself, the less you're leaning on the SMEs, right? I did have it. I told it I was doing a demo and I wanted it to say hello. This actually points to one of the key points that we want to make during this session. Uh, you have to read through all this, right? I said it before, you cannot just use the information that comes out of here and send it on. You can see that it says if you deal with the grueling process of managing Magic Quadrant Wave or wavefront submissions. I don't know what a wavefront submission is. Maybe somebody there works with a firm that has that report title. It's a good example of you will be able to quickly see what you would not pass along to your SMEs in terms of content. But based on the submission that we did, and again, I know leading up to this, some people had questions about how do you fill out the survey? Imagine you're preparing for a webinar and you want to do a demo. Would you ever fill out the WAN Magic Quadrant survey just for fun? Just to show it to people? That's a grueling process, right? That took about an hour. And again, it was a fictitious company. I didn't need to fact check it exactly. I didn't need to ship it off to SMEs, but was I able to get a draft and put it into the original Magic Quadrant spreadsheet, the questionnaire? I can do that, right? How accurate that would be is a whole other question. But it just goes to show how powerful these tools are. You can make up a company and submit an MQ questionnaire on it. So you can see kind of through the chat history, working through to the outputs that I wanted. I have created a couple source documents just to share with you. This one is pretty standard, right? This is as you're going through the process, you get a draft or you get to a point where you feel like it would be instructive to see where you stand with the draft. So not quite 100% complete, but enough that it can make some judgments on what your content is. You can go through, and this is an 8-page document, right? This is not necessarily something you're going to share with all of your SMEs or the review team, but it is a guide to understand where we are with the current response, how we have been, how successful we've been in answering the questions as expected, a scoring table so that you can start to say, hey, based on what we've got so far, and it isn't even complete, like we're already approaching leaders, right? Or we're in roughly the position we thought we'd be, and it's identified those missing questions that when we fill them out could push us beyond where we even expected to be, right? So you've got competitor benchmarks. I did take out the names because I don't know what it knows. But if you were sharing this with people, that might be something that they care deeply about. Are we performing as well as our main competitor? And then gaps and opportunities. And this is really where you get to what's our next level of refinement. When you have access to it's pulled out in stark relief, and these are the top 5 issues we've got with the current draft, you can really start to see how investing maybe an hour or two in answering these questions can move you up, right? It's really looking for the high leverage points. Recommended rewrites. I would not just go and drop this into whatever tool you're using, Copilot, and say, hey, make these changes. But if you're discussing this with your team, here's some ideas on how it might be better worded to match what the analysts are expecting or what will move the needle with the analysts. And I think that's all we've got in this document. But again, 8 pages, probably too much to share. So I asked it to create a reviewer's guide that is more directed at preparing people to review the draft, right? You might have a review team that might be part of your strategy organization or a high-level executive, and you really just need them to focus on, hey, where are we right now, and how can we make this better, right? What do we need from you in order to make this the best reflection of the company so that we can perform really well? So you can see it's broken down by the state of the submission, key questions for the executive review, and strategic advice for polish, right? Pretty simple. It's a couple pages, they can read this in about 10 minutes and give you the feedback you're looking for. Now let's take it another step. Connor was asking about reducing the time on the SMEs. In the review stage, these executives are the SMEs, right? They're the subject matter experts. They have knowledge that only they can impart to us, right? So we want to make it as easy as possible for them to respond. My goal here is let's never ask somebody to spend 3 hours. I don't want them to block out time in their calendars to do this. That's a call that they could be having with a client or doing something else that's very important that they're paid very well for, right? Let's not have them block out 3 hours and join a call with 30 other people where everybody's discussing all aspects. That may be something that is good to do anyway, but let's try and reduce the importance of that to the process. So what I've got here is an email to the CEO. I named him Howard. That's our CEO. And this is really, here's the information that we've attached. Here's a quick summary of where we stand. And then here are the 4 questions that only you can answer, right? So can we talk about specific logos because we've got generic masked case studies or customer stories in here? Can we change the language from aggressively discounting to value optimized bundling, right? Because the AI told us aggressive discounting is the kind of term that the analysts are likely to respond badly to. We've got market traction, which is unverified. How are we going to make our case here? So you can kind of see how these are executive level questions, right? I didn't ask him to read the whole document. I didn't ask him to take a section. I asked him what are the 4 high leverage areas where Howard can weigh in on and improve our results. And maybe he says no, right? And that's where we always want to get to. We want to get to the point where in the refinement, we have decided consciously not to improve it despite what the truth might be or our other strategic priorities. We've pushed it to the limit of how we're going to respond to this survey. It will still keep coming up with suggestions. It's always trying to refine it, but eventually you hit a point where you know you're not going to make those changes, and that's when you can feel comfortable shipping it off. Everybody's been informed. This could be better. We're choosing not to. This is final. And if you shorten the amount of time you get to a first draft, then you have more time to go through this process. My finding is that we usually hit that point in a couple days, right? So now you've got a shorter time to first draft. You've got a very reasonable revision cycle, and you still have time, right? You have time to consider what else you might do, and you didn't put too much strain on your team. So I know a lot of people were looking for more on the draft creation. So just to cover off on that super quickly, because I know Connor's probably looking at the clock and saying we don't have a whole lot of time left. So for this, I did give Notebook LM, and I used Notebook LM because it was a fictitious company. I'm not looking for white papers or anything. I'm not looking for the boil the ocean and give me everything. There's nothing to find. It's a fictitious company. But I said, given this company profile, complete this. And let, I didn't ask it to be too precise. I didn't give it guidance on make sure you hit character counts or anything like that. I just said, fill out a draft. I went through two revisions before I got to the current draft. So this is about where you would be about a week into the process. But I took the output from Notebook LM, which is text-based, right? I put that into a spreadsheet, into one tab. I copied the tab into the Excel, and I use Copilot. Copilot now has a agentic mode. I don't know how many people use Copilot. Frankly, I don't use Copilot a ton. I have kind of gotten very familiar with other tools. It's not disparaging Copilot. I just don't use it that much. But for this, there's really no substitute. You go in, you hit agentic mode, and you say, use use the answer guide or the revision guide, which is in this tab, and fill out or edit the questions, which are in this tab or these tabs. And it will go through and do it. Maybe it's not perfect. I found like sometimes it will offset the answers by a row or something like that. But when you're talking about getting a survey populated, it saves so much time because once you get into this AI process, it starts bugging you that some of these very manual tasks still exist, and getting the answers into the actual spreadsheet is one of those things. And now that's been solved, which just points to a whole other thing to know about this. It's evolving so quickly. There are new things that are happening with the LLMs. The RFI tools are getting smarter and better at what they do, and the formats are changing. So as much as you feel like you get it, maybe in this moment, it's going to be different. It's going to be better, right? We probably hit the point, I want to say, 8 months ago, something like that, where this was a useful thing to do. And now we're at a point where it's just that much more useful. It will be even more useful 6 months from now, right? So it's important to keep up with all of these changes. And I find LinkedIn's a pretty good source, but also call us. We're doing this all the time, and we get exposed to many of these evaluations. So if you have a report that's particularly challenging, like that's the kind of stuff that we love to help with. Uh, all right. I think that's everything. Oh, just in terms of sources, I can see Barb's in there. I don't know if Barb's on this call. This is just a list of sources that I like to include. I'm in this list pretty regularly, either confirming that I've got everything that I can think of in terms of source documents, but also I add to it when I find something else that I'm like, that would make a great source. So this is a living document where I'm really trying to make sure that I'm not forgetting anything. I would encourage you, as you're getting your sources together, if you can't physically or technically connect them to your system, at least have a list somewhere so that you're being thorough with your sources. The better the sources. One of the big complaints I hear about this process is that the drafting is lackluster. I find that's usually not the fault of the tool. That's a problem with your sources. The better the sources, the more information it has, the better those responses are going to be. So, continually look at what you've got in terms of sources and connections. Uh, and then just one other point on sources. One thing that's very difficult with this and with any evaluation is when the market definition from the analyst doesn't match up with how you're tracking revenue and headcount, customer count. Those numerical responses are painful, right? And I'm sure most people have that problem, unless you're a single product company and then your whole company falls into the bucket. That's fantastic. Cherish your position there. For many companies, that's not the case. There is no really great way to get through it the first time. It's going to be painful. The only recommendation I can make is to document the decisions that are made. If you're going to say, all right, 50% of this group of customers we're going to consider as meeting this criteria, and we're going to include these three other buckets. Whatever decisions you're making, however you're getting to that final number, document that and make it part of your source documents because you don't want to have to go through sometimes brutal negotiations when people disagree. Uh, let's not have those battles again. Let's document it and use it as our model for how to convert from our tracking to what Gartner or Forrester or IDC or anybody else uses. And then hopefully the criteria doesn't change too much so that you don't have to go through those again, but maybe you're just fine tuning and maybe you're just following that methodology next time.
Patty, anything to add before we wrap up with some takeaways?
I think just, yeah, going into the do's and don'ts, the reminders.
Real quick before we do, I just want to put a point on something for everyone. So, Greg, the three Google Docs you walked through, again, this was going deep on just one of those 7 or 8 dots that we showed earlier. This was the refining your response. So I just want to clarify that for everyone. And then also, I just want to revisit the process. You first generated that 8-page document, which was sort of an end-to-end analysis of the state of your response at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Further refined down to a 3-page document, which was a reviewer's guide for your SMEs, further refined down to an email to send to an executive stakeholder. Did I get that right?
That's right. And that, if you think about that process, you would go through something similar for drafting the RFI. You're going to say, here is the information we need to get. Here is the task at hand for maybe product or sales or whatever it is. And then you can create a document that's very targeted to an SME. Let's tell them exactly what we need from them that we can't get anywhere else. You don't even have to necessarily put it in the form of a list of questions, right? These 5 questions are yours, right? You can just ask them what you need from them in order to get those questions answered, right? You're abstracting them from the process of answering the questions. You're just telling them the information that you need to get from them particularly. And then once you have that, you can build that into your source documents. And now you've got enough that you can answer it on your own with AI putting it all together, right? Uh, that also gets you away from the issue some people have when they've got 50 people responding is that the quality is uneven, that the style is uneven. This gets you to a place where you can fill it out based on all of the best intelligence in your organization. And you're just very surgically going out and getting that information that doesn't exist anywhere else and building it into your repository.
Sorry, I'm just watching the chat too, and there's some chat about getting surveys and Excel sheets into the AI tools. That is definitely improving. The tools are improving there. It was difficult a few months ago, but they are improving that. So that should get better for everyone. And being able to compare last year's survey to this year's survey, what's changed, will just continue to get easier. We should
Yes.
probably quickly do the do's and don'ts as well, just as a
Yeah,
reminder.
just on the question of spreadsheets, if you have Google Drive, if you can convert it to a Google Sheet instead of Excel, Gemini and Notebook LM can read that now. So not all LLMs do the same with spreadsheets, but if you're looking to use Notebook LM, and again, I recommend it, there are other RAG-based tools out there if you're not allowed to use Notebook LM. But if you can, it's perfectly attuned to do this. That's how you get spreadsheets into Notebook LM.
Yeah. Okay, so just a quick do's and don'ts and some reminders. Greg touched on some of this already, but just the high quality sources. So premise documents, weightings, blog posts, some insights that you've gotten from the analyst. Maybe they've given you some good feedback in a strategy session, sort of creating a persona for the analyst so that you know some of their particular insights. I saw someone mention something about how would AI know if if they disapprove of discounted pricing. That might be some information that's been shared by the analyst in a conversation. So being able to sort of have that analyst persona really helps. Verifying the output. Someone also I saw in the comments was saying, there can be stuff in there that just isn't correct. We definitely agree that you have to verify, ask questions about the information that you're getting. If there's something that looks off, and you do have to go through and quality check, ask the AI, where did you get this answer? Make sure it's verified and makes sense. Checking punctuation, reading and editing, do a quality check for sure. Acknowledge the AI use. I think in a lot of companies now, it's, you've almost got a mandate to use AI more. And so that shouldn't be an issue, but, you want to obviously, be clear that, we're using this tool to help refine this process, to help save everybody time, to help improve the quality of the answers. So, we're straightforward about that. And then just know the roles that you need everybody to play in the process. So dividing up what can the product team offer? What can the marketing team offer? Can the finance team offer? And then breaking things down so that you can get input from those teams separately and a little bit faster in the process, so that we can bring everybody in further along as we're refining and have sort of a collective agreement on this is the best submission that we want to put forward. Make it easy and time efficient for them to do so early in the process, and then just continue to refine. And then on the don'ts, don't expect it to be one and done. It's a conversation with the LLM. You'll do a prompt, you'll get information back. It won't be perfect. You can refine it, ask more questions. Obviously, you want to, you'll refine your prompts and you can save those so that you can, have a library of information that you can use, but you'll continue to refine those. And then, don't stop experimenting and learning. The tools are changing all the time. Just like we said, a few months ago, if you're putting an Excel in there, it's really difficult. Now that's a lot easier. Those things will continue to change. So just kind of keep up on the tools. There'll probably be new tools in 6 months from now. So definitely, as we all share best practices with each other and tips and tricks for what tools will work best. And then, just don't fall for the certainty of AI that this is, locked up response. You've got to test it. You've got to validate it. Look for hot button issues that might jump out to you, and make sure you're refining those issues all the time. And that's it. We got 2 minutes to spare, Connor.
Just with the one and done, I think people stress a lot about that first prompt, trying to make it perfect so that the output's going to be perfect. Don't put too much pressure on that first prompt. Just treat it like a human. Here are the resources I gave you. This is the task. This is why we're doing it, and let it go. Like, see what it comes up with, and then you can refine it from there. Like, don't put too much on that first prompt. It's not one and done. Yeah.
Yeah, and to that point, there's a lot of trial and error, to get to these outputs that Greg and Patty shared today. Tons of trial and error. It's what Greg and Patty and their team are doing all day, every day. So if you want to sort of benefit from all of the trial and error that they've done and continue to do, we have this RFI accelerator service, and as you can see, it's helping some of our clients improve their placement in major evaluative reports. So Greg and Patty are always available to help. We have 1 minute left. One question I saw come up. No, that's okay. One question that came up a couple of times. Some folks noticed in sources in your Notebook LM conversation were LinkedIn posts. Could you explain how it's able to access those posts behind the LinkedIn login?
Honestly, I have run into issues getting LinkedIn profiles to load, even if you point it at that source. Here, I'll go here. So when you go into sources, you can give it a website, right? So you put the URL in. If it's a LinkedIn profile, it may have to be a profile that's accessible without logging in. It doesn't always work. In this case, it did. I can't tell you why, but there are some issues with LinkedIn sometimes. For when I was trying to load Howard in to create the document or the email that was going to him, it would not load his profile. But for Katya, it did. I can't tell you why.
Well, great. We are at the top of the hour. Thank you, Patty and Greg. Thank you to everybody for joining. Thank you for what is the most vibrant chat I have seen in my not quite a year here at ARInsights. So appreciate you all coming and bringing your ideas and asking questions and participating. This is how everybody gets better, and this is how everyone stays on top of this rapidly changing stuff as best as they can. So we appreciate it, and keep an ear out for any further deep dives on other points in this process. For now, we will sign off. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.